Welcome to today's webinar titled Enhancing Your Online Presence, which will provide you with straightforward tools, techniques, and tips to strengthen your professional online presence in social media outlets. We're going to touch on personal brand, social media account maintenance management, even mediums, and the role of settings. Talk about some tips on content and what to include, and some free online tools that are available to you, and also provide you with the encouragement to engage and join in online communities and contribute to those communities, and certainly the Notre Dame Alumni Association's LinkedIn community, which currently has over 35,000 alumni and student members. So the webinar information is meant to support and work for you. Please use what's most relevant and helpful depending on where you are in your career stage and your career goals. My name is Sharon Kane. I serve as the Director of Professional and Academic Programs in Notre Dame's Alumni Association. I'll moderate today's webinar, and that includes a presentation, some polling questions, and a Q&A. To make the most of our time together, our expert Annie Duffy will lead us through a presentation that you see on your screen, leaving time for your questions at the end. Please feel free to submit your questions at any time during the webinar using the prompts in the Q&A section in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. Please know this webinar is being recorded, and we will post it to my Notre Dame website under Connect in the Multimedia Resources section. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Annie Duffy, who serves as the Career Advisor to Notre Dame alumni. Annie is a 2006 Notre Dame grad, earning a degree in marketing from the Mendoza College of Business here at the university. She worked in Notre Dame's Alumni Association directing the clubs for 3+ years before she transitioned into her current role last summer. As a career advisor, Annie provides expert counsel and direct support to our alumni who seek it. Annie created today's presentation based on interactions with our alumni. So thank you in advance, Annie, for sharing this information and your insights. Let's begin.
Hello, thank you Sharon for the introduction, and again thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We're excited to have you here for our third installment of the Clear-Sighted Career Online Learning Series, focusing on enhancing your online presence. Today we'll begin by talking about what many people don't know about an online presence. We'll follow with a quick discussion on how to be aware of your overall digital footprint and what should be considered in terms of how it's viewed. And then we'll follow with the details about the primary components of an online presence, including those within social media, but also additional resources outside of social media that you may not be aware of. We'll then spend some time talking about building a professional online identity, including some best practices and recommendations specifically for your LinkedIn profile. And then we'll conclude with some tips to creating and maintaining a strong online presence, including do's and don'ts surrounding your online engagement and activity. We'll begin today's discussion talking about what many people don't know about an online presence. First, and most important to note, is that 80% of employers in the U.S. do an internet search on their job candidates. That is huge. That means that the vast majority of employers are opening up Google, Yahoo, or some other internet search engine to do research beyond the candidate's resume, cover letter, and application. It's also important to note that 2 out of every 5 U.S. companies go directly to social media to learn more about their candidates. Now, when I refer to these companies going to social media, be aware that this means more than just LinkedIn. Employers check all forms of social media. In fact, just as many employers check a candidate's Facebook page as they do their LinkedIn profile. And some studies state Facebook is searched even more often than LinkedIn, since many times it may have more information. They also often take a look at Twitter, Google Plus profiles, and occasionally even sites like Pinterest and Instagram to learn more about their candidate. All this said, While there certainly is a difference between a professional site like LinkedIn and a personal site like Facebook or Twitter, all forms of social media play a role in your professional online presence. As such, I can't stress enough how important it is to be aware of what's out there on yourself and make sure there isn't anything you wouldn't want a potential employer to see. We'll go further into this later on in the presentation. And finally, while it may seem like employers aren't being fair by going outside of sites like LinkedIn to learn more about you, keep in mind that you can use this to your advantage. Yes, employers do search for information that could lead to a decision not to hire someone. But in a recent study, close to 30% of employers stated that they found information online which led them to actually hire a candidate because they found great information on them outside of their resume, cover letter, and application. So use the various features of the internet as a place to build your personal brand. Next, we're going to talk about how to be aware of your digital footprint. Now, before we get into the details, I wanted to take a quick poll to see how many of you have ever Googled yourself. Using the poll box in the lower right area of your screen, let us know if you've ever Googled yourself, if it's been quite some time since you last did, or if you never have. And don't worry, your submissions are confidential. All right, so it looks like the majority of you have Googled yourself at some point in time. This is great news, and I encourage those of you who have not to do so because others will. It is true that 1 billion names are searched in Google every day. That means that it is extremely likely that you have been one of them. And if you take a look, you'll notice that social media ranks at the very top of most results. So make sure you're aware of what people see when your name pops up. I also encourage you to use other search engines besides Google. While Google is the most widely used, remember that many people still use others such as Yahoo, Bing, and Ask.com, just to name a few. I also recommend searching on a different computer. Since many of us are constantly and automatically logged into Google, our search history is tracked and customized results are displayed based on those searches and our profiles, which could skew the results that we see as compared to outside individuals. It's also so important to keep in mind all aspects of viewing. When creating and managing your digital footprint, consider who is viewing it. Is it a friend, a grandparent? Could it be a potential employer? Also think about what is being viewed. Are there pictures, videos, newspaper articles? Are they appropriate for all audiences? And where is information being viewed? Are search results appearing off of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or other sites? Also keep in mind when and why it could be viewed by somebody. Consider all this carefully when building your online presence and adjust what's out there accordingly because, as we all know, first impressions do count. And they count even more so in situations like this when we aren't there in person to defend ourselves. So it's essential that the public information that's out there on you reflects your best self and is appropriate for all to see. All right, and next we'll spend just a few minutes discussing the various components of an online presence. For many of us, an online presence relies primarily on our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus accounts. However, there are so many other resources out there that we can leverage to enhance our professional online presence. Consider going beyond the offerings of social media and expressing your personal brand through things like e-portfolios, online resumes, personal websites, or even a personal blog. There are so many resources out there to start one up. So have some fun with them and get creative. Let the viewer really get to know who you are. These tools are a great way to showcase all of your talents, accomplishments, and experiences. They allow you to go beyond the standard one-page resume and also include anything from embedded presentations, videos, articles, interviews, even projects, testimonials, and all sorts of multimedia. I've listed just a few free resources to the right, but feel free to search for others as well, as there are several free resources out there in each category. All right, moving on to building a professional identity. While the internet may seem like an overwhelming place, I promise you that building your online presence does not need to be a colossal, stressful task. Just remember, it's your online identity, and you have the ability to edit almost every single piece of information out there. So, as I mentioned before, never forget that while there is a difference between your professional and personal profiles, if it's public, it's fair game to anyone who searches your name. This said, I encourage you to always go directly to your privacy settings when setting up profiles and when maintaining your account. Almost every single one of these platforms will allow you to set extremely high privacy settings, so feel free to adjust as you see fit. I do caution you, though, to keep in mind that you never know who knows who. For example, you may have a Facebook friend who's just an acquaintance of yours, who just so happens to sit next to the HR manager for the company you're applying to. While the HR manager may not be able to see your Facebook page on their account, the person sitting next to them can, and it's very easy to swing their chair around and take a look. This being said, why not use these platforms to your advantage? Highlight your volunteer activities, appropriately illustrate that you're a social person with many strong relationships, join groups to let them know your personal and professional interests, and let viewers know here if you're active in the community. You can still very easily have a great social media presence outside of LinkedIn without hurting your professional reputation. I always like to remind individuals never to neglect accounts that you have set up. I'll give you a great personal example of this happening to myself. Now, keep in mind, I am certainly no more well-known or popular than the average person. So when I recently went to update my Google Plus profile, which, by the way, I had completely forgotten even existed because it pretty much builds itself when you create a Gmail account, I noticed I had 40 followers, which seemed normal considering I wasn't extremely active on Google Plus. But what made my jaw drop was the statistic that stood just to the right of this, which stated that there have been over 41,000 views of this profile. So again, remember, I am by no means above average in popularity. And all of these views were with a practically empty Google Plus profile. If I had been aware of this sooner, I would have made sure that I had much more information listed. Because really, no information is worse than even a basic profile. The last thing you want is for an employer to stumble on a page and find nothing. Now, before moving on to our next section here, I wanted to take another poll to find out how strong you believe your LinkedIn profile is. So take a moment to go back down to the poll feature below and let us know what grade you think your LinkedIn profile would receive if it were viewed by an HR manager. All right. So it looks like the majority of you feel that your LinkedIn profile would receive a grade of around a C. Since LinkedIn is the primary social media platform for professional networking, I did want to dedicate a few minutes specifically on this tool. The following are some key tips and best practices to making sure your LinkedIn profile is strong and attractive to potential employers. First, Make sure you are not simply copying and pasting the content of your resume to your LinkedIn profile. Again, use this space to go beyond what's in your resume. Tell the employer things they don't already know. Use this space to illustrate how you're different than others. Include multimedia, links to articles, presentations, anything HR managers can't see in your resume and application. Also, make sure you have a descriptive headline and summary. Go beyond your title and use those limited characters wisely. Try to add a little more information to your headline and use the summary section to bring your entire profile together. Remember to incorporate key words and phrases into your summary and profile, since this is what many employers search by. Focus on your target industry, positions, and/or job, and then interlace relevant keywords and phrases throughout, tying back to your experience and your accomplishments. Claim a friendly URL. Many people are unaware of this feature, but if you shift into edit mode in your profile, just below your headshot is a toolbar where you can create a shorter, friendlier URL which can include your first and last name and that you can post on documents such as your resume and cover letter. And don't hesitate to ask individuals who you've worked closely with for recommendations. These oftentimes go much further than the simple 1 to 2 word endorsements, since they take some time and consideration to craft by others. Remember, though, to pay it forward. In addition to asking others for recommendations, make sure you're actively providing others with them as well. Always include a headshot. Employers are 7 times more likely to view a profile if there is a headshot attached to it. And make sure it's a professional one. This recommendation actually relates to more than just the level of appropriateness. It also relates to the quality of the headshot. Make sure it's, of course, appropriate, but also that it's clear and clean when uploaded. And finally, with regards to your LinkedIn presence outside of your profile, become active in the LinkedIn community. Don't let it intimidate you. Find groups that you are truly interested in, contribute to discussions, and even start them. Follow companies you admire, and like statuses and updates that you truly enjoy. Get your name out there and get active. And finally, I wanted to share a few important tips and reminders to always keep top of mind when considering your online identity. First, remember, you can control your online presence. You own your profiles, and you're in charge of what people can see and what they can't see. Keep all of your profiles up to date and adjust your privacy settings accordingly. Follow selectively. Remember, everyone can see what groups, companies, and individuals you follow on each social media site. While it's encouraged to follow all that are of interest, consider avoiding anything that may raise questions, be controversial, or just inappropriate. As we noted earlier, don't forget to get active. Share what you're passionate about, and let others see your level of expertise. Ask questions, share your thoughts, and engage in discussions. Don't be intimidated. Start by engaging in forums that you're most comfortable in to build your confidence, and then work from there. While doing so, though, always consider your online voice. Similarly to following selectively, remember that people will read what you say. So avoid being overly controversial, and of course, avoid anything inappropriate, because you never know who will view it. Avoid digital doppelgangers. If you have a common first and last name, creating a unique online presence is even more vital to your digital footprint. Make sure each of your profiles has as much detail as possible to distinguish you from others with the same name. For example, when I search Annie Duffy, a handful of others appear before me. but when I type Annie Duffy, Tampa, Florida, my name appears first. Employers will likely know the city and state that you reside in. So including that in each of your profiles will allow them to find you much quicker and avoid confusing you with anyone else who has the exact same name. And finally, keep in mind that what you don't include could hurt you. An empty profile or having virtually no online presence at all may raise red flags to employers, and they could think you're trying to hide something. And to summarize our presentation today, remember, the most important aspect of your online presence is to be aware of it. Take some time to search for yourself. Use various search engines and try different computers to see what comes up. Always consider who is viewing, what they're able to view, where they're viewing it, and when and why they are viewing. And don't forget to take advantage of tools outside of social media. There are so many great resources out there to help further build your online presence. Get creative and let your personal brand shine through. And finally, remember to get active and always keep it appropriate. When in doubt, don't do it. All right, and now we're ready to open it up for Q&A. I'll turn it back over to Sharon to moderate, and please feel free to send your questions through the Q&A feature of Adobe Connect. If we aren't able to get to your question, we'll answer it via email after the webinar. Just make sure to please let us know your first and last name when you submit the question via chat.
All right, thank you, Annie. Questions are in. Please keep them coming. The first one from Gregory wants to know, do you recommend using a service like brandyourself.com, and have you had any experience with this particular service?
I have not had any experience with this particular service. I'm not sure if there's a fee associated with it or not. If so, I don't necessarily encourage you to start out spending any money. I would try the free resources first. I'll definitely look into this one and try to find out a little bit more. And if anyone else has any feedback on it as well, feel free, to share that too.
Great. Next question, do I need to keep my online information current if I'm not currently in a job search?
Absolutely. It is always very, very important to keep your information current. One, just so that you have a current record of everything so that when the job search time does come, you're not scrambling to put everything together. And two, you never know who's out there just really reviewing your profiles. I mean, they could have a great opportunity that becomes available that you had no idea was there, and you'll want to be ready for that.
Great. As a follow-up to that first question, Gregory himself wrote in and said that there is a free version of the brandyourself.com so that others are available as well. Others are aware on the line. Emily would like to know, how many skills should I include on LinkedIn? Is there any way to edit which ones appear?
You know what? I would include all of your strongest skills. I definitely would not go overboard on how many you list because it waters down just what's listed a little bit. You don't want anyone to think that you are just simply listing every single skill that's out there. So I would certainly list the ones that you are the strongest in and the ones that relate most directly to the position or industry or even company that you're applying to. There is a way to edit which ones appear in terms of order. So I think once you list them, they are all listed, but if you'd like to place certain ones at the top, even if you have not been endorsed by those yet, you certainly can. And you just have to go into the edit mode, and then you have the ability to move up and down.
Great. So Greg's curious about the LinkedIn and the recommendations feature. He was approached by a former boss, and that individual wanted a recommendation that I sensed from Greg's comment he wasn't 100% comfortable giving because that individual was on Facebook and wasn't what he considered to be an effective leader. So how would you respond to someone who requests a recommendation in the LinkedIn environment and you're not 100% comfortable with that?
That's a great question, Greg. If you're not comfortable with writing someone a recommendation, you are under no obligation to do so, especially if it's not, I mean, the last thing you would want is to write a recommendation and then for this person to get a job based on that and then, you know, disappoint their new employer, because that's also a reflection on you as well. So again, you're absolutely under no obligation to have to ever do that, only if you're comfortable.
Great. Gary has a question. He has a LinkedIn profile and a Twitter account and wonders how important is it to maintain other social media accounts such as Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat?
That's another great question, Gary. You definitely don't have to have a presence on every single social media platform that's out there. It could certainly be overwhelming to manage. I would say just making sure that you have a presence on at least some of those. And they can certainly be the ones that you're most interested in, the ones that you enjoy the most. And then focus your energy on those as well. So wherever you have a profile, again, make sure that you're not neglecting it. And if that means limiting it to only just a few, that's certainly okay.
Great. Jordan writes, should we be cautious about making religion, political preference, relationships public? Does that information help or hurt?
I would err on the side of probably, I would be cautious about posting anything around those areas just because they do tend to be a little bit more controversial than others. If it is something that you're certainly passionate about and you're comfortable posting it, then that's all right, but keep in mind that it will be viewed by others, and you know, again, if people do have very strong opinions on those subjects, it could cause you know, just some controversy.
Emily writes, how often should I post status updates on LinkedIn? Any guidelines there?
You know what? I think it depends on what the status updates revolve around, Emily. I would certainly, you know, keep them frequent, but not so frequent that you're only posting just to post. Make sure that they're always relevant. I certainly, you know, I wouldn't encourage you to, you know, be posting all day long. Just make sure that what you're saying is significant and that it will have value to others. So just be aware and considerate of what you're posting. It could be anywhere, I mean, from once a day to once a week, as long as, again, it's significant.
Okay. Melinda writes, my LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram profiles are all private, only visible to my actual connections with those I've approved. Do you advise making some of these more public so that you can be searched or recognized in a positive way to a larger group?
I think that's another great question. I certainly would go and check each of your privacy settings, and you don't necessarily have to make it 100% public, but I would encourage you to make at least some of it public, especially if you've got great information on there that might be attractive to employers. For example, again, if you have pictures doing a community service project or you know, something along those lines, volunteering, anything that they might find interesting, I would, you know, adjust your levels, your privacy settings accordingly so that they could see those. But you do not have to have it completely open to the entire public.
Great. We have more questions. We'll take one more due to time, but as Annie said, she will respond directly. Teresa writes, how does the University Alumni Association feel about alumni using the LinkedIn group to tell others about what they do or offer?
I think it's absolutely encouraged. You know, we love to hear from alumni, and alumni love to hear from other alums as well. It's a wonderful place to connect with alumni and current students. So we also have current students on our group too. And, you know, whether it be telling them about the company so that they know and maybe they are interested in what it has to offer. If you're hiring, we absolutely encourage you to share this information. We love to hear from everyone.
Yes, it is a site that's designed to be professional. You know, the focus of of it is your professional pursuits, career-minded information, a way for people to connect, share information, and contribute. With that, the remaining questions, you're welcome, Teresa. The remaining questions Annie will handle one-on-one. Thank you all. Good questions.
All right, well, thank you everyone for joining today. This recorded presentation will be available shortly on alumni.nd.edu/career. And we hope that you'll join us for the next installment of the Clear-Sighted Career Online Learning Series, which is titled Selling Yourself, Elevator Pitch Step by Step. And it will be presented by Larry Westfall, who is the Director of Graduate Career Services. And it will be held Thursday, June 26th from 12 to 12:30 Eastern Time. Thank you all so much and have a wonderful day.